560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Amy, have you seen this Netflix movie, Don't Look Up, with DiCaprio? Hello, Leo.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet.
Jennifer Lawrence, Jonah Hill.
Okay.
It's
what do you think?
It's more climate change schlock from Hollywood.
Oh.
So I didn't watch it. It's got low scores too on like Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic because it's crap. There's only, no matter how good the actors are, you can only do so much with terrible scripts.
I know Leo got paid more than Jennifer Lawrence, and she was okay with it. Well, thanks, Jennifer.
Well, good. I'm happy for both of them terribly. So just, more propagandizing from, vacuous Hollywood types. But of course, this is the sort of art that the masses consume, and it drives people's misunderstanding of serious issues like energy policy. By the way, if you are still on break and you want to watch a good movie,
yeah, what do you
recommend? It doesn't have to be, everybody focuses on the end of the year. The best movie of 2021 came out in early 2021.
What?
The Dig with Ralph Fiennes and Carey Mulligan. If you want to see a beautiful piece of cinematic art, you go watch The Dig. Okay. There's a recommendation. I have others, but I'll just see your Don't Look Up and raise you The Dig. For more on Don't Look Up and the larger issues that are misrepresented in that film, pleased to be joined by Alex Epstein, the founder of the Center for Industrial Progress. He's the author of Fossil Future, Why Global Human Flourishing Requires More Oil, Coal, and Natural Gas, Not Less. Oh, that's heresy. Alex, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
More fossil fuels. Wait a second. We're trying to go,
eliminating them.
No fossil fuels by 2025, 2035, solar panels on your roof by 2035, no boilers heating your home by, I don't know, Boris Johnson is moving the dates around again. And you're here saying more fossil fuels. That runs afoul of everything we understand from the political class in D.C., at least on the left, and all of their media handmaidens.
Yeah, it's interesting because, when I signed the contract to write the book, it might have seemed crazy, but look at what's happening now. We're having desperate shortages of fossil fuels around the world. We're having energy crises in Asia, Europe, and to a significant extent the United States. And what are people doing when they're short of energy? They're trying to get all the coal, oil, and natural gas they can. They're not begging for new solar panels and wind turbines. And so what this points to is that fossil fuels play a unique role in providing low-cost, reliable energy on a scale of billions of people. And we're still in a world where most people don't use very much energy yet. 3 billion people use less electricity than a typical American refrigerator. So the world needs a lot of energy for people to produce and flourish, and fossil fuels are uniquely able to do that. And that's why I think there's a fossil future, and there should be, because the benefits of that far outweigh any negatives.
Well, what about...
Well, right. And Byron, Bjorn Lundberg, I should say, from the Copenhagen Census Center, is one who makes this point religiously about this zeitgeist behind willy-nilly eliminating energy sources. I mean, what you're really doing is killing people in underdeveloped parts of the world. So all these global citizens that have no problem treating their fellow human beings in places that are not so industrialized as just sort of, casualties of war.
Yeah, I think it's just important to recognize, think all the time about the fact that there are 5 billion people who make less than $10 a day. So I don't know anyone in the United States who thinks that that's an appropriate amount of income for them. So they just have to see the world as a place where we've been made prosperous by energy because energy powers machines, and machines make us productive and prosperous. So most people are still using very little energy, which means they're leading mostly manual labor lives. And most of those people want to have what I call machine labor lives, where machines do so much work for them so they can actually be productive and prosperous. And so we always need to keep that in mind when we're thinking about global issues. And I think almost nobody talks about it. Bjorn is a very welcome exception to that.
So are fossil fuel CO2 emissions killing the planet?
No, I mean, it's interesting. This came up. I wrote on alexepstein.substack.com. I wrote about this movie, Don't Look Up. and they portray fossil fuel CO2 emissions as like a comet that's destroying the Earth. And there are two things wrong with this. One is that those CO2 emissions come with incredible benefits, which a comet destroying the Earth does not. But the other thing is that, like, CO2 emissions, they do have a warming impact, but that's different from even a bad impact, let alone a catastrophe. If you just look at the history of this planet, CO2 levels have been 5 times higher than today's. Temperatures have been 25 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than today. We're not in interesting territory in terms of the planet's history. So yeah, we will emit more CO2. It'll cause some warming, but that's very different than catastrophe. I don't think anyone can even prove it's on balance negative. But if you factor in the benefits of the energy, it's unbelievably positive, and it's apocalyptic not to do it.
And we see, as I mentioned at the outset, after the COP26 conference at the end of last year, we see all of the big pronouncements by the heads of state in the West, including maybe most notably Boris Johnson in England, already walking back what he rolled out in advance of that global climate conference. I think that was presided over by Greta Thunberg, as far as I could tell. He was talking about eliminating all of the natural gas fired boilers in England by like 2025.
It's a big ask.
That's 86% of households in England, and so now he's already pushing that back 10 years, and so forth. So it seems it's just a scam that these political hacks run. They come up with grandiose plans on 10, 20, 50-year timelines. We're working towards this. We're very serious about it. But in the immediacy, I'm not really going to do anything about it because the costs are prohibitive and the deleterious impacts on the lives of their constituents would be as well.
Yeah, I think the word hacks is very appropriate because really it's just random people deciding, oh, this is what energy should happen in the future, and I am going to dictate it. It is so. The issue is they walk it back when there's an obvious kind of immediate catastrophe for them and really for wealthy people. But the problem is even pursuing these things incrementally, that is making energy more expensive and less reliable incrementally, that hurts the poorest people most. And when we encourage it around the world, it prevents billions of people from developing and prospering. So already these policies are tremendously negative, but there is this stopping mechanism, where like when Boris Johnson starts to notice problems in his life and his friend's life, then he's like, oh yeah, maybe it's too fast. But we need to stop doing this kind of energy dictatorship by idiots in the first place.
Yeah, that's a good idea. But I mean, again, we still have the movement afoot in this country. The first year of Biden Inc. is canceling leases on public property for energy exploration. I guess I'm sure he's working busily to turn West Virginia coal miners into coders. Canceling pipelines and this sort of thing. And you talked about the energy crunch and then going hat in hand to Saudi Arabia asking for more oil at the same time. But, this is all characterized as we're just doing this in the short term because, it takes a while for the transformation to occur. But the reality is there is no transformation going away from oil and natural gas to switchgrass and solar panels that can power a $20 trillion economy, much less a planet of 6 billion people.
Yeah, I mean, it's great for your listeners that you know so much about these issues. I agree with all of that. I mean, what you can hope for and desire is truly cost-effective alternatives. And I think the kind of first and last word there is nuclear. But you notice that nuclear has been demonized and criminalized mostly by the people who claim to care about CO2 emissions. So my background is philosophy. I think it's important that this movement for green energy is not pro-energy at all because it's against fossil fuels, it's against nuclear, it's against large-scale hydro. And in practice, it also opposes all the mining, transmission lines, and building necessary for solar panels and wind turbines. So it's really a movement that thinks that human impact on Earth is evil and should be stopped at all costs. And so we should not equate this at all with a movement that wants to help humans by giving us a cleaner and safer environment. That's not what's going on at all.
Right, and that's how you can separate these hysterics and these, know-nothing actors and Hollywood types from serious environmentalists that even walked back some of their serious environmentalism over the years. I mean, I still am jarred by that apology op-ed that Michael Schellenberger wrote last year. We talked to him about it, and he wrote a book as well about the things that he was advocating that turned out to be improper, that bad public policy, and he's walking that back in. We have Patrick Moore, the co-founder of Greenpeace, on the show all the time. Same thing. I mean, he's an environmentalist. He co-founded Greenpeace, but he's not on board with civilizational suicide, which is essentially what's being promoted for short-term political gain.
Yeah, I mean, I think of us, and I would put all those people, friends with or colleagues with, in this category. If I think of us as humanists, so we're energy humanists and climate humanists, which means we think about these issues from a human perspective. And if you're thinking about the world from a human perspective, you want to improve our environment for human beings, but you don't want to save the planet from human beings. I think that's the key distinction. Do you want a better world for humans to live in with all that entails, or do you want a human-free world or the closest approximation?
And in your
Yeah.
article, you pointed out that,
Good
climate
distinction.
disaster deaths have decreased over the last century.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, the way to think of it is nature doesn't give us a safe climate that we make dangerous. It gives us a very dangerous climate that we make safe. And part of that is, a huge part of that is the use of fossil fuels. That enables us to have a very resilient, robust civilization where we can heat and cool on demand, where we can build sturdy buildings, we can irrigate to alleviate drought, et cetera, et cetera. And so my broader point in that article was that the movie portrays it as fossil fuels are making the planet unlivable, and actually the planet is only livable because of fossil fuels, and we need fossil fuels or their equivalent going forward, which for the foreseeable future means the freedom to use fossil fuels and the freedom to innovate with truly cost-effective alternatives like nuclear can be if it stops being demonized and criminalized.
He is Alex Epstein. He writes at alexepstein.substack.com. He's the founder of the Center for Industrial Progress and the author of the book Fossil Future: Why Global Human Flourishing Requires More Oil, Coal, and Natural Gas, Not Less. Alex, thanks for joining us. Good luck with the book.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy using the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Sean Thompson here to tell you about an opportunity for you to promote your business and to make a difference this Christmas season. I'm talking about our Food for the Poor Business Benefactor Program. We've partnered with Food for the Poor to provide life-saving food